I'd like to call this meeting of the Economic Development Committee to order. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda. When you make a motion and so forth, when you speak, in fact, if you would first say your name. Go ahead. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mike Pinch, I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Very good. Is there a second?
John Pache, second.
John Foxy, second. Very good. Any changes to the agenda? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have to approve the April 9th minutes. Is there a motion to approve the April 9th minutes?
Mike Pinch, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thanks, Mike. Mike Pinch makes the motion. Is there a second?
April Kapitsky will second.
Thanks, April. Any changes to the minutes? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Yeah, you can.
All right, next we'll have presentation of the Connect Communities
hold on.
program. April, you're on.
Lou, did you want me to wait?
Yes, thank you. Dave, can everybody hear us okay?
Yes.
Since we had difficulties getting Fred and the new mayor on board, they're right here next to me.
Oh,
Okay, so we're
Okay.
just gonna share this one monitor if it's all right
okay,
with you.
sure, sure.
So when you go to vote,
Can they hear me?
can you guys hear Jackie?
No.
Kind of.
Barely.
Okay, while this is all going on, I'm gonna go over and help with Jackie, but so you got two people
Okay.
right here.
Okay, sounds good, Lou.
Jackie, she can just unmute herself and that'll work.
Okay, April, I think. we'll
How's
just go ahead
that?
and- Go ahead and start.
That's better, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you're good.
Started, the chamber started a downtown subcommittee, a revitalization subcommittee in 2018, focused on recruiting and retaining businesses and revitalizing our downtown area. We have a focus on the North Water Street and Pearl Street, and we're made up of business professionals from the chamber, also working on North Water Street or Pearl Street, and we meet monthly. Recently, we met with Lori Van Alstine, who shared the Main Street, the Main Street program she facilitated in 1996 in the Wapaka area for 6 years, and the value that that program brought to the Wapaka area. So WEDC has two state programs. They have the Main Street program, which Lori Van Alstine did in Wapaka. And then they also have a Connect Communities program. And the Connect Communities program is considered a stepping stone into the Main Street program.
No, it should work.
The New London, the city of New London applied and was involved in the Connect Communities program from 2015 to 2016. And the group Forward New London was facilitating that. And it looks like in 2017, the application was not processed and the group kind of fizzled out due to lack of participation. And what I'm coming to you guys today to propose is that the City of New London reinstates that Connect Communities program during the next application process. Their application process is during the spring, so we're looking at spring 2021. I think a great group in place who's ready to kind of take that on. So this program is designed to support communities who want to do exactly what our revitalization committee is doing. The WEDC will provide technical assistance to our
I can
community
holler, maybe to hear me.
with planning and management and implementation of strategic development projects in downtown. We are able to join workshops with the WEDC, webinars, roundtables, and learn best practices on how to revitalize our downtown subcommittee. The application process is only $200 per year, which was totally funded by the city previously in 2015 and 2016. And like I said, I believe this program would have continued had the Forward New London not fizzled out.
Very good. All right, any questions for April? If not, is there a motion to go ahead? Again, this would you'd be looking at
I'm muted.
2021.
2021, yes.
Yes. So there's a motion to go ahead with a Connect Communities program.
Mike
Yes.
Pinch. Well,
Tom O'Connell, motion to go ahead.
Okay, is there a second?
Mike Pinch, second.
You're not muted.
Very good. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. All right, we will include that in the 2021 budget then. All right, next we have the review and approve renewal of membership dues. Lou?
Oh, what about number 5?
Oh, I'm sorry. Review and approve contract with Todd. Trying to hurry up the meeting, Lou.
It's already moved to approve.
What was that?
It's already moved to approve.
The contract with Todd?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I got some issues with that yet.
Okay, yeah, when we have a second, then we'll debate it, Mike.
All right, thank you.
Is there a second?
Yes, Tom O'Connell.
Tom O'Connell seconds it. Okay, now the questions. Mike Pinch, you're up.
Well, I mean, so you guys reviewed this and made some changes to this contract, correct? I mean, you guys reviewed it and went through the changes that the attorney said that we should make.
Lou and Todd, you want to comment, please?
So the contract was reviewed, but not very many changes were made.
What? Do you have specific changes, Mike Pinch, that you were thinking about?
Well, I mean, our attorney recommended, I mean, normally when we make a contract with our lawyer to Todd instead of Todd making a contract to us, I mean, I'm not sure, but, and then secondly, if we do send it to our attorney, I feel strongly that we should at least follow their guidance. I mean, I'm not an expert contract writer, and I mean, there was quite a few points in that contract that the attorney was concerned about. And I mean, again, after the changes were made, I would have very much liked to see the attorney review it again and I'll make sure that it's in our best interest. As far as the contract itself is concerned, that's one issue that I had. I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
Is there any incentive, Bill Bishop, is there any incentive in this contract to try to drive costs down, or is this gentleman sheerly paid more for the more the project costs? I was just wondering if there's any like stopgaps or something in there that there's an incentive to try to keep the cost, it's one thing to go and say, I found all these people to do the job. Is there anything in here that I missed that says, okay, let's try to do this at, shop around?
Mm-hmm. Todd Hutchinson, would you comment on that, please?
Sure. So I'm trying to go back here and how this happened, but I did present a contract. The city's attorney came up with some questions and suggestions. We then went through this with, I believe, Ron Steinhorst and Gary Henke. I can't remember, Dave, were you? I know Lou was also on the call. I can't remember, Dave, were you on that call or not?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And so some of the suggestions we accepted outright and agreed to, made the changes to the contract. Some of them we didn't agree to and didn't think that they were necessary. And I think that the committee or the group of people that we were talking to at the time were acceptable with that. And so we made the changes then the next day or within a couple of days and got it back to the city. So we did make some changes and didn't on other things. As far as the incentive to reduce costs, there is nothing in the contract right now that is, there's really no, you're absolutely right. there is no incentive to reduce costs in any way other than if the project isn't feasible, it'll never get done and then I don't get paid. So my incentive to get, I'm basically doing, I eat what I kill essentially. So if I can't get a deal done, if it doesn't make financial sense, and if it can't financially be supportive or supported, then it won't get done and I don't get paid. So I'm not, I suppose I'm not opposed to putting something in there in a cost savings manner. A lot of times we will do that once we get to a construction contract. We'll oftentimes give incentives for completing ahead of schedule and or cost savings from a guaranteed maximum price contract. So, but most times that goes into the general contractor contract. But if somebody has some ideas for saving costs, I'm fine with that as well.
When you say we, are you being compensated twice from this side and from the other side?
No, I'm only going to be compensated one. I will only be compensated once. And so the way the contract is written is that if, well, let me think of an example. So if it's just a straight, like take the library as an example. If the library is being developed and I'm working strictly for the city to develop the library, I would be paid by the city as part of that library development package contract. If I bring in another deal to develop a deal and I'm part of that deal, I only get paid from that. Like say if it's an apartment building that's going to be built and I'm a part of that apartment development, I would only be paid by the apartment developer at that time. If it went ahead, it would have to be built into the development budget of that apartment complex. So I'm only going to be paid once. I wouldn't be on both sides of the deal getting paid.
I have a question.
Jackie, you have to mute your mic because there's too many mics on in the council room. So only one
Dave, were
mic
you
at a
asking a
time
question?
can be in the council room.
Yeah, I do have a question as soon as I get this not to blow my eardrums out. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm new to this. This is my first meeting here. If I understand this correctly, there was a contract. It went to our lawyer. He had some changes, and no lawyer has looked at it since then. Is that correct?
No lawyer on my side. I'm not sure what the city did. If the city had anybody review it afterwards.
Lou, can you comment on that?
He just said I was correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. David, you are correct. We've only had the attorney look at it the one time.
I would think we should have the attorney at least look at it again. I don't know if Ron, Gary, Lou are lawyers by any means, or Dave. I would feel a lot more comfortable if the lawyer looked at it again and we were able to make sure that the city is protected.
Okay.
I don't really, we are in no rush.
Mhm.
Just my 2 cents.
Will you make that a motion, amendment to the motion, David? To refer to the city attorney?
Yeah, I would make an amendment to the motion that we refer to the city attorney first to make sure everything is good for the city.
Is there a second?
Second, Tom O'Connell.
Well,
Tom O'Connell, thank you.
I'm
Thank
new
you.
to this.
Any further discussion on David's motion?
Is it appropriate for me to comment here?
Yes, Todd.
I have no problem with the attorney reviewing it again, but I just do want to make sure that so that this gets done at some point, that you guys agree on the deal, on the business points, and that the attorney is really just looking at it from a legal standpoint, because otherwise the attorney is going to be bringing up more business points, and this to me is a circular around and around.
I'm sorry, Dave, if I can interject.
Yes, Jackie.
I apologize, but I think your first motion on the floor should have been voted on. And if they want to rescind that motion, you should. And then you can consider the second motion with the
Well,
amendment.
This is an amendment to the first motion, Jackie?
Okay, so shall we restate it so everyone clearly knows what they're voting on?
Okay, we're just voting on the amendment.
David,
Yes.
I could rescind my first motion.
Well, what we're voting on is that we refer it to the city attorney.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well,
This is Ann. Can I just interject for a second?
let's do what Jackie suggests. If Fred is willing then to rescind his motion, Tom, you rescind the second?
Right. I will.
Okay, so what we'll be voting on then is just David Dorsey's motion to refer this to the attorney. Any questions on that?
Wondering if
Well,
I can make a comment.
Any comments? Go ahead,
Oh.
John Fish.
I have a comment. I mean, I agree with Todd that, we're kind of chasing in a circle. A lot of this was discussed on April 9th, and then people met, they hashed some things over. So to just refer it to attorneys without some kind of timeline, why can't we just back right up? Because it seemed like there was a very quick motion made, and we have gentlemen here to decide and talk to us about this proposal tonight. Why don't we just back up the conversation, hash out some of that, and then word a motion that makes sense per talking to attorneys, and then we have to like put a timeline on it and say we can meet again. We don't have to wait a month to get this ball rolling. I mean, what if we run this by Earl tomorrow and Earl says, yeah, everything we talked about in that meeting has been, I don't know. I just think that we jumped the gun on the initial motion here, and now we're trying to amend it and rescind it at the same time. I'm a little bit confused, actually. I mean, this is a new type of format for a meeting, but that's my 2 cents worth. I'm in favor of getting to the meat of this, I guess.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Ann. This is Ann. I was in on the meeting with Todd and Chris. And we did go through the contract, and basically Dave and Gary decided to give in to some points. So if you send it back to the lawyer, all the lawyer's going to do is bring up those same points again and say, we don't think you should do it this way and that way, but you've agreed that that's the way you want to do it. So legalese maybe, but the major points of it have been discussed and agreed upon. Am I right, Todd?
Yeah, that's the point that I was trying to make, is that if you need the attorney to go back and make sure that all the wherefores and the what and the therefores are in the correct places, that's one thing. But like Ann said, we went through all of the points that he brought up. Some things we thought were valid, some things we didn't feel were valid that we couldn't live with. We said that already. Now, if that, and if you're uncomfortable with the decisions that were made in that one, then maybe we need to do that right now, is go back through those things and do that explanation again. But we should come to an agreement on those business points, and then it can be, once we're all in agreement on the business points, then the lawyer can just make sure that it's properly formatted and properly, written correctly, so that we don't have any problems if you go into mediation or into a court over it or something.
Okay. So to do that, we would have to first of all vote down David Dorsey's motion. So we get that off the floor for time being. Then we'll go back and discuss the points. Does that make sense? Jackie?
See, was Mr. Dorsey's motion seconded?
Yes.
Okay, so now that you only have one motion, and who seconded it?
Mike Pinch, I think.
Actually, sorry, Dave, but I believe there was an original motion made by Fred to approve the contract that's in this packet. And it was seconded, I believe, by Tom. Then Dave interjected and you said, well, okay, we have to approve that motion first. And then they can have this, or then there can be discussion. And then Dave had his suggestion. And so then there was an amended motion. So that's kind of how I remember somebody made a motion as soon as it came up on the agenda. It was, I make a motion.
Johnny, I rescinded my motion.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I guess I.
And Tom's and
My
rescinded
second,
his
I
as well.
took back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just
So
wanted to make
rescinded.
sure that
Yep.
that wasn't still out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the only
I
motion.
rescinded my second.
Okay, so the next thing we should do, Mr. Morak, respectfully, is to restate the motion that you'd like a vote on.
Okay, David Dorsey, basically it's to refer this proposal to the city attorney for review. David Dorsey, was that your motion?
It needs to go to a commercial attorney, not our city attorney.
Okay, so your motion was to refer this to a commercial attorney for review. Is that your motion, David?
Yes.
Okay, and Mike Pinch, was that your second?
I will second that, yes.
Okay, all right, let's vote on that. Either we refer it to a commercial attorney or we get it off the floor and we go back to the beginning, so to speak. So if you vote yes, we refer it to the commercial attorney. If you vote no, the motion is dead and we start over.
Can I ask a question? So just to be clear.
Yep.
If we vote yes, that's the end of the discussion today with Mr. Hutchison and Mr. Mokler. We've lost all opportunity to continue to discuss this if we vote yes?
No, I would say no.
Okay, so
Right.
we could vote yes, but still continue tonight to have a conversation with them around the quote unquote business issues.
Jackie, I would say yes.
Yes, I would say yes, you could still discuss and discuss points that would be referred to that attorney.
Okay. All right, I call the vote. It's a roll call vote here. So start with Fred Zog,
Yes.
John Fauché,
Yes.
David Dorsey,
Yes.
Mike Pinch,
Yes.
Hans
Yes.
Thompson, Bill Bishop,
Yes.
April Kapitsky. April?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion has been approved. It will go back to, or it will be sent to a commercial attorney. Let's see, we missed Tom O'Connell. You get it to vote, and Mike Barrington. First of all,
Yes.
Tom O'Connell, I missed it,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mike Barrington,
Yes.
okay. All right, motion has been approved. We will be forwarding it on to a commercial attorney. Now, further discussion on the proposal itself. Maybe Todd, can you kind of walk through the changes that were made? Or discussed?
Sure. I mean, it would sort of be easier if people had the list of things that the attorney had, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages long, and that includes the attorney's questions, and then we had a written response as well that we had sent back. So if you want, I can go through each one of these items, but it will take some time, and I'm not sure if I can skip through and pick certain ones. But do you want me to just go through all of
Yes,
them?
yes, please.
Okay. So there were two different comments, right? Because there's a contract for me for Wisconsin redevelopment for sort of owner's representation. And then there's a contract for real estate services with Keller Williams and Chris Mockler. And Chris is also on the line. So I think that the first set of, much of the first set were for really referring to Chris. So Chris, do you have those in front of you? Those
I do.
questions?
I do.
You want to go through them and?
Okay, yeah, I'll start off. Thank you for everybody for inviting me to the meeting. There's a number of points here, and I'll read the attorney's concern and give you my response, and then what was decided by the committee when we discussed it. First of all, my contract is a 3-year term, and the lawyer responded that that was too long and 12 months is more typical. I disagree. On these type of things, it can take over a year just to get through the process of purchase on some properties. Negotiations alone can take 3 to 6 months. So 3 years for a government services type contract is pretty typical. And the committee agreed with me, and that was left in the contract. Who determines what properties are assigned to Keller Williams Government Services? A binding listing contract for each property should be done. I agreed with that. That's fine. I had sent over a example of it, and so that was agreed upon by everybody that we would make that change so that each property that is listed would have a separate contract. The agreement provides that Keller Williams updates and contacts are only required that when there's active interest in transactions, otherwise no other contact, I guess. I kind of disagree with that, but I'm willing to attend any meeting that I'm asked to be at, and certainly will be in touch with you if there's interest, questions, or an offer to purchase. So language was modified on that. There was some included items on the contract that I could perform for the city if asked, and the lawyer questioned those. We agreed that we would remove those items. They were just simply there as if the city needed us to do extra work outside of it, like perhaps like a housing study. Now you're already doing a housing study. That's just an example. So that was in there. There was a changing of the word from may to shall on that part. So we just went to shall instead of may. Deliverables was undefined, and we agreed to change the language on that so it would be clearer. And I know this might be hard if you don't have this in front of you. I agreed to modify what the city or what the attorney was asking for on that one. The agreement is exclusive and would preclude the city from engaging other real estate professionals during a 3-year basis. Yes, that's the proposal that we made and was agreed upon by this committee at that time. The reason being, these are not high dollar properties. These are, a little lower dollar properties that we've been talking about. My commission's not going to be that great. And as an incentive, I would be the city's broker of record for selling properties, and that was agreed to.
Chris, that just to be clear, you're also co-broking this as well. So if another broker brings a potential buyer, you would be splitting your commission with that.
It's coming out of my commission, not the city's not paying more.
Correct.
So yes. The attorney felt that my 8% commission was high, given the exclusive relationship. I disagree. 8% is standard. Sometimes 10% is standard. But the way we wrote the contract, it was 8% for the properties. Usually vacant land is 10%. No transaction fee should be paid in addition to the condition, is what the attorney said, because there is a $225 transaction fee that the company that I work for charges for each transaction. I disagreed. It's standard by almost every company nowadays to have a transaction fee separate. And the board agreed with that. Well, this is getting to be a little longer here. I'm trying to break it down for you in the interest of time. It's just another sentence about making sure we have a separate listing contract for each parcel of property that I represent you on. So that's been already agreed to be fixed. City wanted more time for excluded properties to give me a list of people that would be, not excluded properties, I said that wrong, excluded buyers that I will not earn a commission on if those buyers come forward. The committee here agreed there, I don't believe there was any excluded buyers, but I did agree to 7 additional days for a total of 14 days. The standard Wisconsin contract says 7 days, and I agreed that 14 days. After my contract terminates, and if the city does not renew, standard clause in Wisconsin is that if one of the people that came forward and made an offer or was highly involved in a property comes back and purchases a property, I am paid a commission. The attorney wanted to limit that to 6 months. Standard is 1 year. And if I've done all the work to get to that point and then there was some hiccup and then they come back, I believe I'm due a commission, and I disagreed with the attorney, and the committee here agreed with me. There was a situation where if somebody pays some earnest money on a property as part of a contract and then backs out and the city retains that earnest money, that I would get a portion of that. And we agreed to, first of all, change the language that would only happen if the city retain that earnest money. So if for some reason the city decided not to retain it, I don't get paid anyways. There was some section in here about co-broking, which Todd Hutchinson just mentioned. It was, I think the attorney was misreading it. The standard state of Wisconsin contract says I will co-broke with other agents. So I will pay them 40% of the commission. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. She wanted to know what the associated, or he or she, I'm not sure, wanted to see what associated documents that would be included. And we agreed and we attached those. They were simple documents. And we attached those when we resubmitted the information. As part of my submittal, I included a marketing plan that had some information that the attorney felt that title companies and attorneys handle, and I shouldn't be handling. They're essentially just reviews of closing statements to make sure the numbers add up. It's a service we do provide. I have found that title companies have made mistakes. I have found that attorneys have made mistakes, and I've certainly made mistakes. So having 3 sets of eyes is better than 2. So that was kind of a really a non-issue, and the committee agreed. Some of this other stuff gets kind of, picky because it gets down to each individual language. And from what I can see, we agreed with the attorney and made those changes. I don't know if you want me to go through every item. There was one section where I earn a commission when we have a viable contract and all the terms have been met. That appears in the standard state of Wisconsin language, not something that I wrote, something that the state of Wisconsin wrote when these contracts were developed. And he wanted to eliminate some of those items that I wouldn't get paid if the city backed out of a contract. And I felt that to be wrong because at no fault of my own, I should not, I should get paid, So the committee agreed with that and we left that in. The rest of it was pretty much little small language changes, and it looks like I said agreeable for all of them, little ones. So it's sort of getting out the contract and going line by line, which might mean we're here till 7 o'clock. I'm not sure you want me to do that, but it looks like we agreed with all of them based on the notes that I have here. Is there any questions I can help with? I mean, I know this is, if you don't have it in front of you, this might be difficult to understand.
So I'm in favor of the shorter terms. I mean, I don't want to hire you for 3 years and not know what kind of work you can do. And be in a contract in that way. How can we get out of this contract without penalization?
Well, I mean, it is a contract, and if there wasn't penalization, then what good would the contract be?
Right.
My concern, in answer to your first part of your question, I understand your concern, but we spend money to make money, and a year is simply not long enough. But we're just going to be getting into things, you know, and possibly negotiating contracts, and then my contract's going to come to an end.
But
Now,
if you're doing a good job, then that would mean that we'd want to extend it without a doubt.
Right, I understand, and but you were dealing with a committee, and 51% of you might think I'm not doing a good job, and 49% might.
Correct.
You know, I might be able to do something on a little shorter term, but I would definitely have to say 1 year is just not enough. This is a complicated process to sell properties that belong to municipalities. And I want to do the best job for you.
You're asking for 3 years. We're asking for 1 year. Where is your compromise?
How about 2 years, 4 months?
How about a year and a half?
I could do a 2-year contract. That's what I told Todd earlier. But it's really getting kind of short if I'm doing less than 2 years. Because I mean, we would literally do spend money. I have employees to market the stuff and stuff like that. I have to be given every opportunity. I mean, there are ways that you can terminate the contract if I'm doing a bad job. You know, and none of us want to go to court. I mean, that's not my thing here. I mean, if we don't have trust between us, it's going to be hard for us to work together. So, you know, I want to be available to the whole committee. If anybody has questions, they can contact me or attend any of your meetings and answer your questions in an open format. If somebody doesn't like something you're doing, I'm going to be straightforward and answer it. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. My goal is to sell your property or I don't get paid.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I'm happy to answer any question. Complete transparency.
I have a question, Tom O'Connell.
Hi, Tom.
On the listing contract, you said it sounded like there's going to be several different listing contracts.
Yes, there's going to be the library property, and we talked about the industrial park in a previous meeting. And I guess that's the only properties that we've talked about at this time.
Well, who's going to decide which we sell and when we sell it? We're not going to sell one piece off and not another.
Right. Whoever you appoint, I'm assuming it has to come back to city council for approval. So if the contract is not
satisfactory,
you're not going to accept it. You know, if I'm selling something you don't like, but I do need a point of contact that I can discuss this with, you know, so that kind of has an idea of what you're trying to achieve. I don't know if that's a city administrator or the mayor.
It would be coming back to the council, yes.
Okay.
I do have one other question. I'm not an attorney by any means. Your minimums, and even you said that the properties in London aren't worth that much money. Your minimums of 8,000 if there's a building on it, and 5,000 just for land. Well, if you're not going to get much money for it, you're taking an awful big piece of the pie. Is there a reason why the minimums are so high?
The minimums are because well, I guess, Dave, I'm not sure that I agree that they're high. I mean, a couple $100,000 house, you know, is almost that much, you know, that sells all the time. There's a lot more work involved with this than selling a residential property. So the minimums were established because, you know, we've got to meet our goals too, or we can't do a good job for you. Some of your lots, I'm understanding over in the industrial park are not extremely high costs. So that's why we established the minimums. That makes sense.
Do you have an estimated cost on our property values in the town or city of New London?
We haven't gotten to that part yet. We've just worked on this contract and then.
So you just took a figure that you thought was good?
We based it on other contracts that we have done.
From other cities?
Other projects, other cities. And, you know, we took a look at, you know, what the minimum costs we have in there to try to make some. I mean, I like to eat too. If you could see my stomach, you could tell. But that's kind of where we came up with it.
With all due respect, though, them numbers could be high for the city of New London.
I suppose they could be. I don't think they are.
Okay.
Everybody has their own opinion.
In the case that there is somebody very interested that we would like to incentivize, and they would like to come to New London, and we would like to give a piece of property in the industrial park for very little money, how does that work? What's your role and what constraints does it put on us, or does it?
Well, right now, if you were to transfer a piece of property in the industrial park, I would be paid a commission based on value or the minimum. If that's something that you've done in the past and you seriously think is going to happen, we could adjust the contract. I don't know. It depends what services you want me to handle in that situation. If I'm handling none, then maybe we could do a reduced commission for that type of situation.
How do other communities do that? Because I understand that it's fairly common that some of the neighboring industrial parks will actually gift or give a portion of land for very, very inexpensive when it comes to, you know, trying to lure a place to come in. How do others do that? They're not all paying a brokerage fee, are they? To give someone something?
No, there's two ways that it's handled. Either they are getting paid a brokerage or a minimum brokerage, whatever their contract says, or there's some sort of a reduced commission for that situation. Every city, handles it different in how they do it and how they do it with their broker.
What do you suggest?
I'm suggesting that we come up with a value, and I'm trying to put my hands on the numbers here. If the city were to gift a property away, sorry, I don't have it right in front of me. There it is. So basically, our minimum commission for vacant land is $5,000 on this. It's an 8% plus a 275 or $5,000. So if the city were to gift this property away, a particular property away, then I would suggest a commission, as long as it's a gift, you know, to bring the business in, and the company is not paying for the land, I would reduce that commission to 50% of that minimum.
Well, to my
What
mind,
expenses would you have if we were to do that? If we were to do that as a city, what expenses would you incur?
I would have incurred all my expenses up to that point for marketing and contacting people and sending all the information out. So depending on when you did that, I mean, if you did it the day after the contract was signed, my expenses would be minimal. If you did it a month or longer, obviously I've got staff working every week on selling property, your property and other property. You know, so it's hard for me to give you a hardcore number on each property.
Leading up to that point, who does the cost of the housing study and the work into that?
The housing study, I believe, from my understanding, you guys have already bought and paid for, and it's supposed to be coming anytime now.
So what costs are you inquiring?
I'm not paying anything on that or charging anything for that. I had no involvement in that.
You want $4,000 for the property?
Pardon me?
You want $4,000 for the expenses of the property that we're trading?
I didn't do anything, and this happened.
I guess I'm confused. I mean, the minimum is $5,000 on a vacant piece of land, or 8% of the commission.
I was thinking it was 8,000. So you want half of the 5,000?
No, it'd be 2,500, just to be clear.
2,500 on a vacant piece of land.
Get an X or something?
And then you want half of that if we were to gift the land to a business.
Okay, let me restate it just to be clear. It's $5,000 minimum commission on a vacant piece of land. If you gift that to somebody to incentivize them, I can't talk today, incentivize them to come to the city of New London and build in the industrial park, I would reduce that commission to $2,500.
$2,500. And to inquire what costs?
If I could chime in here for a minute. I mean, the point of Chris, bringing Chris in and so somebody asked, how do other communities do this in industrial parks? So you either have a staff that has a community development division, an economic development division, that's actual full-time paid staff people that are out there marketing this and meeting with companies and businesses to bring them in, going to trade shows, going to things like that, to bring businesses into that community. And they're the ones that are bringing these people in and then gifting the land to them. Or, you know, in smaller communities where you don't, I mean, it doesn't make sense to have a full-time staff doing that. It makes sense to bring on a broker that's doing that. And that's what Chris's full-time job is he's on, you know, LinkedIn, Facebook, Crexy, Catalyst, LoopNet, and constantly doing, I get email blasts from Chris every day about different properties that he's marketing. And he also has, I don't know what his database is of businesses and economic development organizations around the state, but he's blasting those emails out every day or at least once a week to all those groups to try and drum up business and potential interest in different projects and try to match those potential businesses with the vacant land that you have. So that's, to my mind, that's what you're paying them for. It's not, it's to find those businesses and bring them in. And that was my intention of bringing Chris in along to do this. Lou, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It just occurred to me as you said that, as you were speaking. I just want to remind the Economic Development Committee that we already have WEDA, World Economic Development Alliance, contracted out to do exactly what Todd or what Chris would be doing. So we might have a conflict there. They're the ones that are supposed to be advertising, sending out emails and so on to try to lure businesses into our Northeast Industrial Park. If you remember the last meeting, I mentioned that it was put on approximately a 1 month to 6 week holdover because we're right in the middle of the COVID pandemic.
I just wanted to clarify something, and I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman's name to your right, Lou. Yes, if the city,
Mayor Herder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the city had somebody and was working with somebody that I had not worked with, then I would reduce the commission for that person. If I'm working with that person and then you decide to give them a reduced commission, if I brought them forward, then I would stick to what's in the contract because I've been doing my job. But if you had somebody already out there that I don't know about, that I didn't work with.
So what you're saying is if I brought in a business into this town and gave them property, and myself and the council, without any work done by you, we still owe you a percentage
Right, because we've still spent the money to go out and market these properties.
on our work. You marketed other properties, that'd be, what I'm saying though is like you're a realtor.
Yep.
So you're gonna tell me you want to capitalize off of another realtor selling a house that you were trying to sell.
In a sense, yes, because I've already out there doing the work and spending money to do stuff, and another realtor comes in, then they would get paid by me anyways, because I would be the listing agent. So I guess I wouldn't be really, I'd be capitalizing off them, but that's how the system works, you know, every day in residential property, for example.
All right, and that's what I was asking.
Yep,
So
thank you.
Mike Pinch here. So we haven't checked any other realtors out or any other developers that do the same services as you. So, I mean, maybe there is a different realtor that if we sold the property, like we just mentioned, that they wouldn't take a commission. I mean, or maybe there's some better benefits to be made by looking at several other people that do the same thing as you. We were only brought you as a person to look into or to consider. And I feel like we should look at several opportunities to compare notes and see if yours is the best deal or theirs is the best deal, or maybe you're the only one that would do this. Maybe no one else would do this, but we don't know that. And we were never given the opportunity to explore that. So I'm concerned about that, the fact that we're being presented something that, and we're not experts in the realty field. But I mean, I certainly would like to look at several options before I make a decision. That's just a concern of mine.
Well, certainly, Mike, you know, there are other companies that do this. Most of them work on a much grander scale than the size of New London. There are not too many companies out there that do stuff on a smaller scale like we do. But certainly, competition is a big thing, great thing if you can find someone to do it cheaper. I would caution you that you're hiring a commercial real estate agent with government service experience. I have Keller Williams Government Services backing me up. If I need an expert on something, land planning or something like that, I can reach out to them as part of the group that I belong to. But certainly competition is a good thing, Mike. And if somebody can do it better and cheaper, then, that
Well,
would be
I
the
mean, I'm
smartest thing.
not saying you may be
No,
the best
right.
person by far. I
Right.
just don't know that because I haven't seen two other people to compare you to or to listen to their spiel. And I mean, I'm just a little concerned with the fact that I like to have options and consider all the different, possibilities before I make a decision. And I feel like we've only got one here and it's been kind of pushed pretty quickly and I'm just concerned about that. So it's my opinion only.
And
Thank
to
you, Mike.
spawn off of what you said, Mike, I agree with looking at other places because, and no disrespect to you, Chris, that it seems like you are dealing with cities that are far greater in population than ours and a higher margin of housing. Just by
I
your
deal with mostly smaller cities. I don't deal with the Madison, Milwaukee's, Eau Claire's, Green Bay's. I typically deal with smaller cities.
Okay.
That's the niche that I've taken. I've done a lot of land development myself. I've been in front of many city councils. This is the second one that I've been able to attend by Zoom meeting. All the rest I've done in person. So I tend to deal with smaller cities because I think that's where my niche is. Where all the other people that do what I do tend to want to handle Madison, Milwaukee, because there's bigger commissions to be made there.
Sure. And with that said, though, with your numbers that you're giving us seem to be overreached to what my personal perception of our estimated value, average value is. And that's where I came up with that. And that's why I said, no disrespect to you.
No, none taken. None taken. Great discussion.
Can I add 2 cents worth? This is John Fache. I just think that we got to look at what we're talking about as far as $2,500 and I know we need to look at this under a magnifying glass and everything, but yet the conversation tonight almost seems like it's like kicking a gift horse in the face. How many RFPs have we sent out for potential developers, people to grab this project and keep it moving forward? We've said for years, we want to keep this project moving forward. We're talking a multi-million-dollar of development in anything we do. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars on different realtors, Beaumier properties. I think even some local realtors had that property and various properties under we paid for those contracts over the years. We paid $15,000 or $16,000 to Bill up in Clintonville to do marketing for us. We pay different agencies to do marketing. And I can tell you from the industry that I work in, that $2,500 is basically a drop in the bucket in the marketing expense that a realtor goes through to try to earn their buck. And that's making the sell. And what we're looking for is somebody to make the sell. We're looking for somebody with a local connection. We're not looking for just somebody to come in, take the money and run. And I agree with everybody's reservations, but I kind of feel a little bit like we're picking on somebody that's just trying to really help this project along. And it's not like none of you could go back and research the history of us working on getting some development going here. And I felt like this was a positive step in getting something going, a different perspective. We've had developer drop out for health reasons. And now I just feel like we're backpedaling and spinning in the mud again over. Yes, I think that it's great that everybody's had an interest in this in the last year, but this is something that's been going on in this city for about 10 years. as far as marketing, realtors, different things and fees paid. And we're talking sawdust on the floor underneath a masterpiece here when we start to look at $2,500 and these people's professional services, which we don't have in-house people to take care of as far as real estate transactions and following through with some of the things that happen in these types of transactions and business deals. And I agree with having a commercial attorney inspect everything, but I just feel like we're spinning some tires here in this conversation, and I appreciate Chris's patience on the hot seat here tonight.
Thank you, John.
I have
Happy to
one
answer
last
questions.
comment. I have one last comment, John. You talked to $2,500. That's if we do the work and sell the property ourselves, that would be his commission, half of that commission, that of the 5,000. And then on that.
Okay, Mark, let me stop you right there. Mark, that's if you sold it tonight before he even put one ad in or put any ink to a paper on a contract, then yes, he shouldn't get a penny.
Yeah,
but
and
if
that's
he
fine. I just
starts
wanted to
that
point
process of marketing the whole package,
Right.
then yes, he has skin in the game the minute he signs his paper.
I just wanted to point that out, that was the whole scope of that.
He's probably spent that much already just in this meeting.
And I'm coming way behind that horse. My only other interest on that is just for not knowing what we're getting into. I'd like to see a shorter time, which he met us in at 2 years. And you know, that we move forward on that. That's the last input I have on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other comments?
I
Hans?
have a comment. I guess what I want to know about is any part of the property that's undesirable. What are you going to do with that? Say wet areas or a big pipe and a great big pipe across the whole property? Are you going to check that stuff all out before you really market it?
Well, I'm going to talk with city staff and learn as much as possible. Todd also has a great understanding on some of this property. So him and I will be working closely together. Certainly I'll be putting eyes on the property, you know, depending on if a pipe is buried or something, I may not see it. So we'll have to address those concerns if they come up, but I'm sure the city knows quite a bit about somebody in the city knows quite a bit about the property that we'll be marketing.
Who would you expect would pay for those things?
As far as, Tom, help me out what you're referring
Things
to.
that were undesirable, the city or the new developer?
I would assume the new developer probably would. It depends on the situation, though.
Hans, you had a question?
Got two questions. This contract has been presented to us as a joint, two contracts, really. One with you, Chris, and one with Todd. And so I guess one question I have is it a possibility to split these contracts? Is it all or nothing, or can we pick only one of the two that we may want to go with? That's my first question. My second question is, if we did end up going with Keller Williams on the realty, could you explain why it's important that it's exclusive and that we couldn't at the same time work with other realtors at the same time? Why should we limit our options? So those are my two questions.
Well, number one, the splitting the contracts, and I guess have Todd jump in. They are two separate contracts. They're not tied together. Todd, do you have some comments?
I'm fine if they would be split. I'm a licensed real estate broker as well, and I'm also and my brokerage or my license is tied with Keller Williams. So that's how I know Chris. That's how I know Keller Williams. That's why. But from my side of things, if we're looking at developing the lot, I felt that it was very important to bring in more guns, bigger guns, to do the marketing of the rest of the entire site. And so if you're looking for help getting things developed, I feel that this is important to bring in some professional real estate brokers to help market and just get the word out, bring in other potential interest in the properties. So, but having said that, if you just wanted to hire Keller Williams for marketing and not hire me, I'm totally fine with that. If you want to hire me, I really feel like I guess I wouldn't be opposed to working with a different broker, but I just think that it would work best if it was with Keller Williams because I'm already associated with Keller Williams. So that's from the splitting standpoint. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question, Hans?
Oh, just to finish up, I think Todd and I are going to be working hand in hand on this. I'm going to be helping him with his project. He's going to be helping me with my project because that's the way we have agreed to work. The second question was exclusivity for 2 years on my contract, 3 years originally, and then 2 years, and not bringing another broker in. Again, these aren't high dollar properties that I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars on. The city of New London's, smaller community, and these aren't high dollar property amounts. To better incentivize it for me and my staff, we'd like an exclusive contract so that we know we're gonna, have hopefully something at the end that is a win-win for all of us. So that's why we're asking for 2 years, or in this case, 2 years after talking with the mayor. Usually we're 3 years on this kind of stuff because it can take over a year just to get a contract negotiated and going the right direction and get through the contingencies, DNR and all the different stuff. I've got commercial contracts that take 9 months minimum. That's a long time to wait for my money, but that's part of the deal. So that's why we're asking for the exclusivity.
But also, just to be clear again, exclusivity doesn't mean that other brokers can't be bringing potential buyers in. And if that's the case, so we're going to be working with other brokers and they will be bringing in their buyers. And then that just cuts the fee in half. That 40, I guess 60-40 split. Right. They get 40%, you get 60. So it doesn't exclude us from working with other brokers, and other brokers will be bringing buyers in. It's just we're the exclusive listing agent for it.
Does that answer your question, Hans?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that P60 split? Is that common when a different broker brings somebody in? Just quick question.
Yeah, the 60-40 split is common. Sometimes it's 50-50. It's very common that a broker could come to me and say, hey, I got a guy that wants to buy half the industrial park, but I want 50% of the commission. And it's kind of the wild, wild west sometimes between brokers out there. But we're putting out there right away that we're offering 40%, and most of them will accept that. It's either going to be 40-60 or 50-50, depending on what's negotiated. And I'll negotiate that. If somebody comes and wants to buy something in the city of New London and I think it's a viable deal, I don't get paid unless I close, until I fulfill my terms of the contract. So, that's what my interest is. On the same respect, I couldn't take 10% because I wouldn't pay my bills.
So I want to ask everybody in this meeting right now this question. What is the goal of the city of New London? To sell the property and get it developed. That's the goal. So what difference does it make if this guy has connections and we're using his connections to get the word out on the property that we have to sell? I don't care if we're selling chicken eggs. This guy knows how to move eggs. I just want everyone to have that mindset, but yet look at the details here. I mean, I think we're getting hung up on the wrong kinds of details here. That's just my opinion. And I appreciate your patience explaining all of this, Chris and Todd, because we're all new at this, but we have been in this process. I've been sitting on one side of the table listening to it for 24 plus years, and just the last 6 or 7 been on the other side of the table, which I'd rather be back on the other side just listening. Sorry,
well, if I can just say something really quick. You're right, John, that the goal is to move the city forward, but you also have to keep in mind that you have to do it and be fiscally responsible. You can't just give it all away.
Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, it's Tom O'Connell.
Yep.
What is our goal? Are we gonna sell some properties before we do anything with the library, or is the library one of the first goals before we do anything else?
Todd, can you comment on that?
My mind is they're going on at the same time. You know, we're going to be working on trying to find a way to develop the library and locate it on this. I understand that the library has their preferred spot on the site. And I also understand that there are some issues with that spot. So we're either going to have to work through getting it on that spot or move it to a different location on that site, perhaps a different location. But so, and at the same time that we're doing that, we're marketing the whole site. We're saying this is the site that's available. We're going to try to carve off a section of that for the library proper to also be developed, and see who comes in and see who we can bring in that has an interest. So I don't see them get this done one before the other. I see working on them at the same time simultaneously to get the whole site developed.
That would be my agreement also.
But there's one issue with that. I just want to point this out. We've already down to 2 developers for the riverfront development. So if that's going to be excluded as part of one of the excluded properties, I do want to ask one question. Todd, how do you get paid? Because if it's excluded, you wouldn't be entitled to commission?
Correct, but I get paid so there's a separate contract for me, which is really owner's representation. My purpose then in just developing the library is to represent the owner in getting this developed. So that would be the first thing that I would do, and I think I said in the first 30 or 60 days, my first thing is just to find out what's been completed already so far. What did Stadmuller get done? How far along is it? What are his numbers? How far along is are the architectural drawings really done? All that I've seen for the architectural drawings is one rendering of the building and a schematic floor plan of the first floor. Okay, so is that all that's there? So I have to go through all of that. Go ahead, Lou.
Well, you're talking about a plan that we have run. We've had Ellers look at it. We've run it internally. The plan does not work financially. So you're talking about spending the first 30 days looking at a plan that we've already hashed out for 3 years and still does not work.
Okay, well, I thought that, do we know, I guess to give you a reason for why it doesn't work, what the gap is, where, and I guess now I'm confused, Lou, because you just said that you have 2 developers for that property. Well, if the property doesn't work, then how do you have 2 developers for that property?
You're talking about putting the library down there, and we've already gone through that several times now. You've got a $5 million, if you go with Stadmuller, you've got a $5 to $6 million project that the library has only raised 1.5 million and is looking for the city to bail out the rest of it. The Stadmuller plan also required $1.2 million up front to at least one of the developers. Okay, that plan does not work. And Dave, I think you were in that meeting where by the time we were done with the numbers, the city would be casting out almost $10 million, almost none of it, which we would recover. And we don't even have that much room in our debt ratio that we're allowed by state. So you're talking about a plan that does not work. It hasn't worked. You're talking about spending 30 plus days looking on it. And here's the other question. I'm also asked this. If it comes down to it, where the library people want that library down there, and as a city, we don't want it down there, how are you going to settle that?
Well, the contract is with the city, and if the city is telling me that they aren't willing to pay for that, then it doesn't go there. And so then the next step is, well, where can it go? Does the city want a library? Okay, maybe the city doesn't want a library at all. And I guess I need to understand that, but my coming into this, I thought that the city wanted to have a library developed. And I think that my understanding anyway, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought that the city wanted to have a library developed somewhere. And the library would prefer it to be on that site that Lou, you're saying is not a possibility, right? So my work is to find out why it isn't, to meet with to be a conduit between the city and the library, to explain why it doesn't work there
I'm
and
not trying to be
where
rude here.
it might work better.
If I can just step in, and librarian. Lou, you're talking about a plan that is no longer viable, obviously. And you don't know what the new number, you don't know what the new net debt is, and we don't have any value on there. So how do we know if it's going to work or not? I think you're really premature saying it's not going to work when you don't have any numbers. You don't have a developer, so you don't have the value. So how do you know it's not going to work? I think we need to get a developer and find out if we have the value. Maybe somebody wants to put $30 million worth of property down there. You don't know. So I think it's premature to now say it's a plan that doesn't work.
The Stat Miller plan is the one that doesn't work. That part hasn't changed.
And that's not the
are
plan
you
that
telling
we're
me right
running.
now that you are not going to bring up the Stat Miller plan anymore?
We're saying that since the city paid so much money for that we thought that when you go out and talk to a developer, it might be worth bringing up some of that so you're saving some costs. We're not saying that that is the only plan that we're willing to work on. We were trying to use costs that the city had already spent and could maybe talk to a developer to use some of the money that the city has already spent.
Well, this is Mike Pinch. We still haven't seen the housing study, and that's going to say a lot about whether things are affordable or not. We haven't talked to the developers from New York at all since the first time we spoke with them. We have no idea what their proposal is. So there are possibilities. It's just we need to look into those yet.
I agree, and I thought that was going on as we were doing this other stuff.
So did I.
Come to a stop.
And I guess that's what I see my role as, right? My role, because you do not have a full-time Department of Development at the City of New London, my role is to take that on, to go out and meet with Greg Fisk. I forget his first name. The guy that has the money man from New York. I know them. I've met with them a couple of times. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, if they were so interested in doing this, where have they been? Where's the interest? And if they are interested, then somebody needs to be following up with them. I'm that guy. I would be the guy following up with them, finding out what their proposal is. Also meeting with Horizon, the previous developer that was working with Stadmuller. Find out what their plan is, what their level of interest is now. And also meet with other people. Within the last, week or two, I had the person that's in charge of library development in the city of Milwaukee meet with some of the members of the library board. I think some of the council members were on there as well. But he just explained what their process is and how that works for them. So that's sort of my role, is to facilitate all of that and to bring people in to the process to try and get a project done. So that's what I see. And and I don't get paid unless a project gets done, right? So I have the incentive to try and get something done here. And if you don't like what I'm doing, you can fire me at any time. So that's the other piece of this process, but that's what I see my role as.
May I ask one more question quick? Todd?
Yes.
So let's say we get the housing study back and things don't look really favorable, and the Milwaukee thing kind of falls through, and we can't really find somebody to develop it the way that we first originally discussed. Do you have any other suggestions to try to proceed with developing that if these kind of things aren't feasible after you study this?
Yeah, I think that's part of what we're doing when we're marketing the whole site, right? And we're marketing the whole community, really, is what other interest is out there? What other possibilities are there for this site? And also, I mean, you know, I've been involved with this for quite a while. I mean, when the buildings were still on there, and I talked to the last city administrator, I'm drawing a blank on his name now, but you know, whether or not they should, yeah, Kent, whether or not they should be torn down. So I've known about this and these buildings since then. That was pre-2000. So over 20 years now, this has been going on. And I guess my point is that one of the things that I did in some of the other presentations was go out and talk to the local businesses in town. One thing might be St. Joe's. Are they interested in some sort of expansion for elderly housing at this particular site? I mean, I was involved in the Washington Junior High School redevelopment way back. I don't even remember when that was.
Yep.
But I was essentially the school district's representative at that time. And what I did, I presented to them 3 different options. One was to tear that building down and do a subdivision. One was to do exactly what's happened there right now. And I forget what the third option was in there. And through that process, I went and met with St. Joe's. St. Joe's at that time decided to buy it, and they developed pretty much, I mean, I can show you the schematics that I had from that. That was the idea that I came up with. So I see myself doing a similar thing on this particular site, looking at different options. I mean, one thing is, I don't know if there's still an architectural class at the high school, but drafting, I can totally see getting the drafting class involved and coming up with, it's one of my business partner in Wisconsin redevelopment is a professor at Milwaukee School of Engineering. And one of the things we do all the time with those students is we pick projects. In fact, we already did one on this site. I wasn't very happy with how it turned out a number of years ago, but we pick projects and the students generate ideas for that particular site and drawings and pro formas. I could see doing something similar to that just to get more interest in the community through the high school class, you know, to get them involved, generate some drawings, I don't even know if they have the capability to do that, but those are the types of things that I would see myself doing for this particular site, to not only look at what can happen with the library, but also what happens with the rest of the site, what happens with the site across the street that the library owns right now, and even the industrial park. So I view my role as sort of city development for the city because the city doesn't have a development department. And that's...
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Todd.
That's it.
I just have one question quick.
Sure.
So if we go ahead and sign a contract with you and you come up with a development, are we bound by that development? Or does that still get voted on by everybody here?
No, that anything that has to get paid, anything that has to get sold. So if you have to sell the land, you guys are going to vote on it, right? We're going to, let's say I want to put a dollar store on there and you guys don't like that. You vote no, and there's no dollar store. Whether you want to sell the land to a dollar store or whether you want to put money in for a dollar store. So you guys ultimately always are going to have the final say on what gets developed there. And so if I can't come up with something that's palatable to the community, it doesn't get done and I don't get paid.
What if we turn down, this would be more for Chris, if you sold the land or wanted to sell the land, do we still get to approve who you sell it to? Or do you just get to sell it to whoever you want?
No, I don't get to sell it to whoever I want. That's final approval would be city council, from my understanding, from what Lou said earlier.
But it is a little, Chris, how would this work? Like if you found a dollar store that wanted to go into the industrial park as an example, and let's say that it was zoned for a dollar store, would you get paid in that situation? If the city didn't want it, but it was zoned correctly, would you still be would they still be obligated to pay you for that?
Well, basically, under the terms of the contract, if I meet all my obligations, I'm due a commission. But if it's not approved and doesn't, if the city's not going to allow it there and give it the permits that it needs, there's obviously going to be a permit contingency in any offer, because nobody's going to be crazy enough to make an offer without having certain contingencies in there. And one of them is that the city's going to give them permits. So if that contingency is not met, I don't get paid.
If I can answer Dave's question too. Dave, the process goes, these people bring in prospective buyers, and it ultimately, not only will it get approved by the council, but first it'll go through committee. And keep in mind, this isn't a city council meeting tonight. This is just an economic development committee meeting. There are many committees. Then there's finance committee. Then there's, you probably couldn't do anything with this development without public works. There's covenances to industrial parks. There's different things. All of those things, everybody would have ample time to look at. Nothing would get shoved down anybody's throat. And ultimately, yes, we, the citizens and people on this council, would have a say. It wouldn't just be, these guys are running ramshot over New London. It's simply, we're contracting some services we can't really do ourselves. Otherwise, we're just micromanaging and we're trying to be everything. That's my take on it.
Any other questions?
I guess I have one. On the river, Tom O'Connell.
Yep.
On the riverfront, that walk will always be there. That's a permanent easement. Is that having any effect on the future buyers? Well, are they just gonna like a trailer? They won't be able to tie their boats to it. That's gonna be an easement there.
Todd, you just want to make a quick comment?
Yeah, we understand that there's a permanent easement there, and that's something that would be, subject to for any buyer. I think we've had discussions about this before, though, that I've developed other land in downtown Milwaukee where the city of Milwaukee owns the Riverwalk, or at least had a permanent easement there, but we still had boat slips off of there that the individual condo owners could own. So I think we might be putting the cart before the horse on all of this, but I do think that there's potential still to have private, if not ownership, at least private lease rights of a dock there. If that's a potential need down the road. But obviously it's, we have to work with what we have in the potential development and the potential buyers that we have going forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, it feels to me like we reached a point where we should make a decision on going ahead with these guys or forgetting it. Even before we refer the proposal to the attorney, I think we need to agree that, yes, we want to go ahead with these guys, provided that the details are worked out, or no, let's forget about them. We're back to, we don't want them or whatever. And so along those lines, I would accept a motion to proceed kind of with this plan or whatever, something along those lines. I know, John Fichet, you had some ideas there.
Well, I think we already approved running anything by a commercial attorney, correct?
Yes.
That was.
Yes.
So, keep in mind that nothing this committee approves gets by city council without formal approval. But I think we need to keep this dialogue with these gentlemen who have been so kind to be patient and join us tonight. I think we need to keep this going. So I guess I would entertain, how would I put it in a motion? I would make a motion that we continue negotiations with for government services with KW Commercial Real Estate Broker Services Contract and Todd Hutchison, you know, whatever the proper names of all of that we continue to negotiate with them pending agreements with, after review of attorneys. You know, I don't know, what is that? Or is everybody in disagreement on that? I don't know.
I guess, that's what I want to find out, John, is if the majority of the committee feels we should just drop this whole idea, I want to find that out. I mean, then it's a waste of time to send this stuff to the attorney and so forth. On the other hand, if the majority of the committee feels that it's a good idea, we just need to work out a few details on it or whatever, let's go ahead with it. Then let's refer it on to the attorney like the earlier motion that we made, and then it'll come back to city council for final approval.
Okay.
So would you make a motion to, just basically what you said is proceed with
I would make a motion to proceed with negotiating terms with these two groups, these gentlemen, and proceed with pursuit of a contract with them for development of city properties.
Okay. Is there a second to John's motion?
April Kapitsky will second.
Okay, April seconds it. Any further discussion of that?
So I'm just so we're clear, we're still gonna go to the attorney to review that one more time, and we also negotiated some things about the length and all that during.
That is correct.
Okay, just so I'm clear on that.
Yep.
I will update my contract and send it over to you.
Okay, and that's what we would refer on to the attorney then. After it's reviewed by the attorney, it would come back to this committee for final approval.
And,
All right.
and Lou, I would ask that we all receive all documents pertinent to this discussion, including the documents that were missing tonight in the previous correspondence between subgroups and whatnot. So we maybe have all been better prepared and have had to take less time asking questions we already knew answers to.
What documents were missing, if I can ask?
The proposed things that you and Gary and other groups talked about on the initial contract that was discussed at the April 9th meeting, and then met subsequent the following day, hashed over some things, notes from that meeting, things that Chris kind of truncated tonight for us.
Yeah,
that weren't in
everything,
today's packet.
everything that was done has already been sent around through council and the Economic Development Committee.
Okay, it seemed like some of us didn't have that in our packets tonight. I guess I didn't. The correspondence between.
Oh, from the attorney?
Yeah, yeah.
And that probably wasn't included because I had already sent it around.
Well, just as we go forward, like between just those communications,
Yeah,
they're
I just
kind of
wanted to
like
be clear on
cliff
that.
notes and they help us understand legal documents easier.
I'll help.
Not a problem.
I'll update my updates so that you can kind of see how this all happened.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'm gonna call the roll. First of all, Fred Zog.
No.
Okay. John Fauché,
Yes.
David Dorsey,
No.
Mike Pinch,
No,
Hans Thompson. Hans, are you there?
I am, sorry, I had to unmute. No,
Okay. Bill Bishop. Bill there? Bill
I'm here.
Bishop?
Sorry. Here, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry about that. So just clarification, we are voting to continue to learn more about this contract and to work towards the contract?
Yes, with these guys.
And we're not bound?
No.
Yes, then I vote yes.
April Kapitsky
Yes.
and Dave Morak, yes. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Tom O'Connell?
I'm not on the committee, I can vote, right?
Yes.
Oh,
You can
no.
vote. You voted
No.
no? Mike Barrington? Mike,
Yes,
you voted yes?
yes.
By any chance, Lou, were you, I have a tied score here.
Yeah, in the event of a tie, the motion dies.
Okay,
And Jackie's here to confirm that.
okay.
People
Is Jackie
on the
still there?
committee Can't vote. Jackie's still here, right?
Jackie, did you get the vote?
Yes, I did, Mr. Morak. It is a 5-5 tie. And Robert's rule says then the motion does die.
Okay. So the only motion on the floor then that passed was to send this on to the commercial attorney for review, and that would come back then to this committee at our next meeting. Are there any other comments or questions on this topic?
Hey, Dave,
Yes, Fred.
I thought the only people who could, all aldermen are invited to the committee meetings, but only those appointed to the committee can vote.
No, that is not correct. If you attend a committee meeting, you do get to vote on issues. All right, any other comments on this? All right, then finally, I thank you all for the discussion and so forth and the
Dave?
patience as we went through this.
Dave?
Yes,
Yeah, sorry. The motion was to continue with this contract, and since it failed, there's no need to go to the attorney.
Right.
but that was the motion on the floor.
That was the motion, right?
That was passed.
I believe the motion was to continue negotiating with them.
Yeah.
And since it failed,
Okay,
we're done
Okay.
negotiating with them.
okay. Jackie, you agree with that?
I wrote down the motion and it was to continue negotiating with Keller Williams and Todd Hutchison to move the project forward. That failed with the tie vote.
And so the earlier motion then would be null and void, so to speak.
Well, at this point, there is no contract to continue with
Okay,
unless you would reopen some sort of in the future.
okay. All right, so we're done negotiating this contract?
So does this forbid it for being brought up at
Bring it up.
a future meeting
We're not
after people have learned more information, or does this mean that it's dead forever?
Jackie?
Hello?
Jackie?
I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of background voices, Mr. Fichet. You're asking, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking if this contract negotiation no longer exists?
Or can it be brought back? He asked.
Anything can be brought back on a future agenda, properly noticed.
All right, let's move on then. Number 6, review and approve renewal of membership dues to the Foxy Chamber. Lou?
Yeah, okay, so Fox Cities, our membership is due for renewal. The one thing I wanted to note, and that's why it was included in your packet, is that the fees have not gone up due to the COVID and the strain that everybody's going through. So Fox Cities took it upon themselves to say no increases. And we already have it in the budget to pay this, assuming there was an increase.
Okay. Is there a motion then to go ahead and prove this?
Zog makes a motion to approve it.
Fred approves it. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Dave Dorsey.
Dave Dorsey seconds. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all say aye.
Aye.
Disapprove. Motion carried. So we've got that taken care of then, Lou. We go ahead and pay that.
Yeah, I'll submit it to April and Judy in the morning.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, number 7, review the committee's 2020 goals. Lou had that in there. What's been accomplished so far. And he also added a few points that he was ill under the weather the first month. April has pretty much been washed out because of the virus and so forth. But are there any questions on what was accomplished so far? Lou?
There's one other thing. Another goal was accomplished as of today.
Okay.
And unfortunately, if you check your emails, you'll see this. There's a letter that one of the goals was to send a letter to DECA graduating students.
Yes.
And I've got a copy of it right here.
Yep.
I did create a letter because we didn't have, Kent never had a template. So I created a letter, addressed it to each individual student. There's 24 students and personally assigned every single one. They'll be dropped off tomorrow at the school and then inserted into their graduation packet.
Very good.
I made sure it was also in color so they can see our logo and everything.
Okay. Good.
But if you check your emails, they'll be there.
All right. So are there any questions on Lou's or the accomplishments that Lou, that committee has been working on?
I had a question.
Tom?
Does the council need a referral from this committee in order to vote on it?
No, Tom, that issue's already settled.
Okay. The answer, no, Tom. All right, item number 8, updates in April.
So when the answer is no, then they can vote on it.
Pardon me?
My question was, when they said no, that means they could vote on it without a recommendation from this committee.
Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't clear on your, I'm sorry, Dave, if I can interject.
Okay, thank you.
The way our city is structured, just so everyone knows, in order to get something in front of council, it has to be passed by committee first.
Okay.
Okay. All right, April.
For a business update, yesterday we learned of the first business in New London closing due to COVID-19, which is Save Half Greeting Cards. Colleen is the owner. She has 2 other locations in Appleton and Green Bay, and she plans to keep both of those locations open. But sadly, effective April 20th, her New London business is closed. Updates continue to roll in with the state. Our golf courses and campgrounds were able to open on April 24th. We know Plock and Rice's Greenhouse are opening soon. And now effective tomorrow at 8 a.m., you're going to see dog groomers, rental stores, car washes reopen with some restrictions. And hopefully the governor will continue to monitor it on a weekly basis and continue to slowly open up our businesses, because our businesses are in rough shape. Some of these businesses have been going 6 weeks with no income. They have no unemployment coming in, and they're looking at another 4 weeks. And I can't even imagine the stress level that they are enduring right now. There's many state and federal programs that these businesses are lining up and trying to get their hands on before the funds dry up. Most of them did not make that first phase of the payroll protection program, and they tried again yesterday once those applications went live. I'm wondering if there is anything that the city is able to do to support these businesses right now. And what I'm wondering is, are we able, I know we have those facade grants, the facade grant money. Are we able to reassign that grant money 2 businesses and they don't have to match that $2,000 so that we can help them get through this.
Interesting.
April, I can check on the legalities of that. And I've been reaching out to some other cities of what they've been doing. Now, fortunately, they have TIF money that they can reassign for like business improvement districts, that sort of stuff. But one of the things I've been, and I mentioned this to our new mayor, is I'm checking out the legality of another project. I don't want to say it on here, to be honest with you, because I don't want it running around and then find out we couldn't do it. Okay, but I'd be happy to talk to you either later today or tomorrow morning what it is I'm looking at.
It'd be wonderful, because if these businesses continue to close, it's going to cripple our city.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
April, do you have an estimate of how many businesses you think would need assistance?
I don't, but I can come to the committee with that information. I have them constantly reaching out, asking, do you have statistics on any of the businesses that are actually receiving the PPP funds? I know Wolf River Bank, every single application that they applied for the PPP funds was approved. So that was good news, but I can get specifics for the committee. I would encourage this committee, the WMC is proposing Wisconsin Back to Business Plan. They're proposing that. They've already proposed it. They rolled it out on Friday. And they are asking the governor to slowly open up the businesses as soon as May 4th. And they have a well thought out plan based on data-driven. It's a data-driven approach to risk assessment. So it takes into consideration your current infection rate, your population, your industry, and your healthcare density. And with that, you're given an assessment, low, medium, or high, on whether you can open. So we're hoping to hear back from the governor. If anybody's interested in watching that webinar, they're going to give a recap on that tomorrow. I can send that out to the committee if you want to hop on and view that.
May I ask another question?
Absolutely.
What would be a dollar amount that would be meaningful to businesses to help them survive? I mean, is it 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 per business, or?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike. Currently, the facade grant right now offers a $2,000 match for facade improvements. And what I was thinking, I saw this in Stevens Point, they put $100,000 towards $2,000 a piece. They put $100,000 in the pot, and their businesses, the businesses can apply for that $2,000 match. It's not an end all be all, but it's something. It's showing our businesses, hey, we care about you and we don't want you to shut your doors.
April, one of the other things along that same lines, Waupun has a foundation that they set up. It's almost like a public-private partnership. The economic development director there has already shared, as of earlier today, shared the information with me. And what it is essentially it's casting money aside if ever a situation like this were to develop again. It may not help a lot immediately, but it's like having a piggy bank down the road.
Absolutely, sandbagging money to
right.
Never know what
we're more proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the mayor has something too. So April, in the rest of the committee, is there anything that we can do to team up with the chamber as well, as far as like myself as mayor, to draft a letter to mail to our governor in regards of opening?
I can share that WMC mail. I mean, they're in constant communication with state legislatures and trying to push that governor to open up these businesses slowly. The governor has, no disrespect to the governor, but his state plan is a one size fits all. We have 7 counties in this state that have 0 cases, and 48% of our cases are coming out of Milwaukee, and the entire state is being forced to shut down. Now, Menards has hundreds of people shopping in their store on Saturday, buying product, buying paint, buying hoses, buying stuff to just do around their yard, but simply repurposed. Can't have 1 or 2 people come into her business and give her income. That makes 0 sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I would be very interested in teaming up with you and drafting a letter and being a full participant in that action.
Awesome. I can definitely give you those contacts, and I appreciate that.
Very good. Anything else, April?
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, the administrator update. Lou, anything?
Sorry, I started talking, we're still muted. So, we did better in the last meeting. So I apologize to everyone that we've had some technical errors, and we'll be working on like Fred's computer and so on to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Very good.
That being said, I'm continuing to get out there and do what I can. I haven't been able to do a whole lot of face-to-face because of the COVID restrictions. But I have been kicking over stones to see what I find, whatever penny or pot of gold I can find. And anything, and April can probably attest to this, anything I find, I've been sending right over to April to try to get the information out as soon as possible. That being said, at the very tail end of your packets, there was Foxy. This was just recently. It was as of recent, I think, Friday morning. Just another regional partnership, Fox Cities regional partnership plan that they're trying to kick around. So I try to include that in the packet to get it out to you all as soon as possible. Yeah, that's all I really had. Thank you.
Any questions for Lou or April? Okay, hearing none.
Sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
There was one last thing. I'm sorry. And you already know about this. April, one of the other things we're doing too is we're feeling kind of bad for the graduating seniors. That letter that we talked about, well, on Thursday at 4, our new mayor, if you want to talk about that part.
Oh, yeah.
No, we're on, okay.
We drafted a letter to a proclamation for the seniors, declaring next month New London Seniors Month, and we're gonna have
Scott Black here and and the principal for the high school. Sorry, his name's temporarily Yerke.
Brian Yerke.
Yeah, have them both here, and myself and Jackie Byer for the signing of the proclamation. Yeah, and it'll be video, correct?
We're going to videotape it and post it. This way, we're trying. What we're trying to do is tell the seniors, just like anything else, you're our future leader. So we want to make sure as they move out into this world that they have a home here, and this is kind of our way of just at least acknowledging something that they nobody could plan for.
That's right. Okay, good. Anything else?
Number 9.
I do have one more thing.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Is there any way, and I'm not sure who it would be, maybe April or a new mayor, but could we reach out, or maybe we have already reached out to the larger, we've talked a lot about the smaller businesses, but if we could reach out to the larger ones in town as well, maybe some in the industrial park, maybe some of the Hillshire, some of the Kerwood, just to let them know we're here, we're concerned, get a feel for how they're doing and just show some concern. Is that a viable option?
Bill, I don't know if you were on our call last week. I shared, my staff sat down, Karen specifically, took 4 to 5 days and called 250 businesses in New London to check in and see how they were doing. So, and that wasn't just our small businesses, that was every single chamber member. And I've checked in with Tyson. They're not a chamber member, but I have a close connection with Carrie Chaplin there. And I checked in with her to see how everything is. And their main focus is just keeping their employees safe and happy. And another thing I want to share with this committee, I don't know if you guys saw our post, but our larger organizations and businesses are ordering chamber bucks like crazy. So everything, when someone orders a chamber buck, that money, none of that income comes to the chamber. That money goes specifically back into the community. And we typically see about $40,000 to $45,000 worth of chamber bucks being purchased for the year. Since the pandemic has started, we've seen Bemis, Theta Care, other large organizations and businesses purchase chamber bucks in the amount of $45,000. And all that money is going to go back into our community.
Awesome.
And that's one of the things I was going to ask you about as well, April. If that's something,
Oh, thank
and I
you.
have to check the legality there, but if it's something the city could purchase and then distribute out to residents, and with the idea that it can only be spent, obviously it can only be spent in the city.
Mhm. Yep, that would be a chamber buck. That's a shop local
Yeah.
program, and that encourages spending only in our community.
Good idea, Lou.
Any
I
other,
just need to check the legalities.
good. Any other comments or questions?
Sorry,
Dave?
Dave.
Hello, Dave?
Yep.
Tom, I moved to adjourn.
No, wait.
Wait before. Who is this?
This is Lori Dalinger, Van Alstine, and Joe Van Alstine. If we can
Yes,
please
yes.
provide comment.
Okay, yes.
We've been listening to the whole meeting.
And we appreciate everything that everyone is doing for the city, but we also would like you to be known that we have been working on fundraising for the library for the past year plus, to the point with the community and with the committee to $1.5 million. And we are upset that this project has not moved forward because we've been challenged by the city administrator and all this talk back and forth. We realize that you have to dot the i's and cross the t's, but why are we putting any developers through all this conversation of
For little dollars.
and years of the riverfront property being empty, no development, the downtown is in a downfall. And I have worked in downtown revitalization, economic development. I've run a chamber, and Joe has worked in sales for 30 plus years. This is our hometown, and I'm sorry, but we're upset. We want the council to take action on this and move this community forward. Enough is enough.
I mean, Lori was the director of the Portage County Business Council, okay, for what, 10 years? And that's a county. Stevens Point, UW Stevens Point. Hello, Lou, I see you looking that way. I'm sorry, I'm not a politically correct person.
Okay, that's.
As a reminder, this project was going on for 2.5 years, so I
Oh, sorry, but we've got $1.5 million raised as community members and
taxpayers, and you act like it's nothing, Lou. It bugs me.
Okay, and like to wrap this up. Thank you for your comments, Lori and Joe.
Sorry, and I'm sorry I got upset.
Okay, thank you. Tom made a motion to adjourn. Was there a second?
Second, Pinch.
Pinch seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, thank you very much for the meeting.